In this episode, we step into the part of security operations that feels less dramatic than chasing alerts, but often determines whether a team actually gets better over time. A Security Operations Center, SOC, can work hard every day and still struggle to explain whether it is improving, because effort is not the same thing as effectiveness. Metrics and analytics are the tools that turn daily activity into a clearer picture of progress, gaps, and priorities. For a brand new learner, the tricky part is that numbers can create a false sense of certainty, especially when the wrong numbers are chosen or when they are interpreted without context. The goal here is not to collect as many measurements as possible, because more measurement can become more confusion. The goal is to choose measures that reflect what matters, reveal whether the SOC is protecting the organization better, and guide the next improvements without encouraging bad behavior. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong starting point is understanding the difference between a metric and an analytic, because people often use the words interchangeably even though they serve different roles. A metric is a measurement, typically a number or a rate, such as how many alerts were handled in a week or how long a certain step usually takes. An analytic is a method of interpreting data to produce insight, such as identifying trends, spotting unusual patterns, or comparing performance across different conditions. Metrics are often used to summarize, while analytics are often used to explain, and both are needed for a mature program. If you only collect metrics, you may end up with a dashboard that looks impressive but does not tell you what to do next. If you only do analytics without stable measurements, you may have interesting observations that are hard to repeat or validate. Choosing measures that reflect progress means building a small set of metrics that can be tracked consistently, and then applying analytics to interpret what changes mean and why they happened. When these pieces work together, numbers stop being decoration and start becoming decision support. The first big concept is that good metrics must connect to the mission of the SOC, not to what is easiest to count. If you measure what is easy, you usually measure volume, like the number of alerts processed or the number of tickets closed, because those numbers are sitting on the surface. Volume can matter, but volume by itself can be misleading, because closing many tickets could mean the system is too noisy, not that the team is effective. A mission-focused view asks what the SOC is trying to achieve, such as detecting harmful activity early, limiting impact when incidents occur, and improving visibility over time. Once you name the mission, you can choose measures that reflect the outcomes you care about, not just the workload you experienced. This is also where beginners learn a painful truth about measurement, which is that a metric will shape behavior even if you do not intend it to. If you reward the wrong metric, you can accidentally teach the team to optimize for the number rather than for security. A helpful way to make mission alignment concrete is to separate metrics into two broad categories that tell different stories, which are effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness asks whether the SOC is finding the right problems and reducing harm, which includes quality of detection, speed of recognition, accuracy of triage, and meaningful containment decisions. Efficiency asks whether the SOC is using time and effort wisely, which includes how quickly work moves through the pipeline and whether repetitive tasks are consuming too much human attention. Both categories matter, but they answer different questions, and it is easy to over-focus on efficiency because it is easier to measure time and throughput. The danger is that a very efficient team can still be ineffective if it processes noise quickly while missing real threats. The opposite danger is that a team can be effective in a few cases but inefficient overall, burning out people and failing to scale. Good measurement keeps these categories balanced, so the SOC improves in a way that protects both security outcomes and team sustainability. Many organizations talk about time-based measures, and they can be useful when interpreted correctly because time often correlates with impact. Common examples include mean time to detect, MTTD, and mean time to respond, MTTR, which attempt to summarize how quickly the team notices something important and how quickly the team acts on it. The beginner trap is treating these numbers like objective truth without asking what events are included and how those times are defined. Detection time can mean the time from attacker action to first signal, or the time from first signal to human recognition, and those are very different stories. Response time can mean the time to first containment action, the time to resolution, or the time to return systems to normal operation, and those also mean different things. Time metrics become meaningful when you define them clearly, apply them consistently, and segment them in ways that reflect reality, such as different severities or different incident types. When you do that, time measures reveal where the process slows down and where improvements will reduce real risk. Quality metrics are often harder to define than time metrics, but they are crucial if you want measures that reflect effectiveness. One quality idea is precision, which is the fraction of things you labeled as threats that truly were threats, and another is coverage, which is the degree to which important attacker behaviors are detectable in your environment. A noisy environment might produce many alerts, but if most are false positives, the quality is poor and the team will be distracted. A quiet environment might seem healthy, but if important systems lack visibility, the quiet may reflect blindness rather than safety. High-quality detection means the SOC can surface meaningful signals with enough context that analysts can make defensible decisions quickly. It also means the organization can explain why a particular detection matters and how it ties to risk. For beginners, it helps to remember that quality is not just about reducing false positives, because reducing false positives by disabling detections can hide real threats. Quality is about surfacing the right signals and filtering them in ways that preserve true risk. Another foundational point is that analytics and metrics should be built around a defensible data foundation, because weak data creates strong-looking lies. If different systems record time differently, if logs are missing from key assets, or if events are duplicated or dropped, you will produce metrics that shift for reasons unrelated to real performance. This is why mature programs invest in consistency, such as stable event collection, reliable timestamps, and clear definitions for what counts as an alert, an incident, and a closure. For a beginner, it is tempting to assume that if a number comes from a system, it must be accurate, but measurement systems are only as good as the inputs they receive. When you see a sudden change in a metric, the right question is not only what did the team do differently, but also did the data pipeline change. A new data source, a logging failure, or a change in categorization can make performance appear better or worse without any real operational change. Data discipline is therefore part of honest measurement, and honest measurement is part of trustworthy leadership. Selecting measures that reflect progress also requires an understanding of leading versus lagging indicators, because progress is not always visible through outcomes immediately. A lagging indicator tells you what already happened, such as how many confirmed incidents occurred last quarter or how long recovery took after an event. Lagging indicators are important, but they can be slow to change and can be influenced by factors outside the SOC, such as business changes or threat landscape shifts. A leading indicator gives you an early signal that capability is improving, such as increased visibility coverage on critical systems, improved tuning that reduces false positives without losing detection, or increased use of consistent playbooks that improve investigation quality. Leading indicators matter because they let you see progress before the next major incident arrives, and they help you justify investment and attention. The beginner misunderstanding is thinking only incidents prove value, but a well-run program should show improvement even during quiet periods. When you balance leading and lagging indicators, you can tell a more complete story about readiness and capability. A practical technique for choosing meaningful measures is to anchor metrics to a small number of operational questions that leaders and responders both care about. For example, you might ask whether the team is detecting important threats earlier, whether investigations are becoming more consistent, whether containment choices are reducing impact, and whether improvements are reducing repeat problems. Those questions can then map to measures such as time to triage for high-severity signals, percentage of alerts that lead to confirmed issues, repeat incident rates tied to the same root cause, and visibility coverage on critical assets. The exact numbers matter less than the alignment between question and measurement, because the measurement exists to answer a question. This approach also prevents metric overload, where dozens of numbers compete for attention and none of them guide action. When a metric answers a question clearly, it becomes a decision tool rather than a status decoration. For beginners, the lesson is that metrics should simplify decisions, not complicate them. And that starts by tying every metric to a question someone actually needs answered. It is also important to avoid vanity metrics, which are numbers that look impressive but do not reflect protection or improvement. Counting the total number of alerts processed can be vanity if it rewards handling noise quickly rather than improving signal quality. Counting the number of rules created can be vanity if it encourages creation without validation, tuning, or operational readiness. Even counting the number of investigations can be vanity if investigations are opened too easily and closed without learning anything new. Vanity metrics are dangerous because they can make a program look busy and successful while hiding the fact that the SOC is not reducing risk. The antidote is to favor metrics that connect to outcomes, such as reduced time to confirm meaningful events, reduced false positive rates without reduced detection coverage, and faster containment decisions for confirmed threats. Another antidote is triangulation, meaning you avoid trusting one metric in isolation and instead look for consistent signals across different measures. When multiple measures point in the same direction, you gain confidence that you are observing real improvement. Metrics should also support continuous improvement by highlighting bottlenecks and failure patterns in the operational workflow. Bottlenecks can include delays in tree-off, long waits for needed access, slow handoffs between teams, or repeated rework due to unclear ownership. A measurement mindset helps you spot where time accumulates and where uncertainty persists, which tells you where process changes will have the greatest impact. This is where analytics becomes especially useful, because you can break down time measures by category, compare patterns across different incident types, and identify which steps vary the most. High variation often signals inconsistency, unclear playbooks, or uneven data quality. For beginners, it is useful to remember that the goal is not to blame people for delays, because delays are often caused by structural conditions. The goal is to make the process smoother and more predictable so the team can respond reliably under pressure. When metrics are used this way, they become a guide for where to invest effort, not a weapon for criticism. Communication is another place where the right measures reflect effectiveness, because trust is built by clarity and consistency, not by technical detail. Leaders often want to know whether the SOC is improving and whether the organization is safer, and responders want to know whether their work is making a difference. Metrics can support both audiences if they are framed properly, such as showing trends in detection quality, showing improvements in response time for high-impact events, and showing reductions in repeat problems through better root cause resolution. The key is to avoid presenting raw numbers without explanation, because numbers without context invite misinterpretation. A metric that changes could reflect real improvement, a change in threat activity, a change in business operations, or a change in data collection, and your explanation must account for those possibilities. For beginners, the skill is learning to speak with measured confidence, where you state what the metric indicates, what it does not prove, and what you plan to do next based on it. When you communicate metrics as part of a story about capability and decisions, they become a tool for alignment rather than a source of confusion. Another major theme is that good metrics should respect human limits and support sustainable operations, because burnout is an operational risk in security work. If the SOC is drowning in repetitive tasks, even strong analysts will make mistakes and miss patterns, and the organization will pay for that through slower detection and weaker response. Metrics can reveal burnout risk by showing persistent backlog growth, consistently high alert volumes, repeated after-hours surges, and low time spent on proactive improvement. These are not just productivity concerns, because they directly affect security outcomes by reducing attention and increasing error rates. A mature program uses measurement to justify improvements that reduce repetitive work and increase focus on high-value analysis. For beginners, it is important to see that people, process, and technology are connected, and metrics can reveal stress points in that system. When metrics lead to changes that reduce noise and streamline decisions, both effectiveness and team health improve. This is one of the clearest examples of metrics reflecting real progress rather than simply recording activity. To choose measures that truly reflect progress, You also need a feedback loop where metrics drive action and action changes metrics in a way you can validate. If a metric is tracked but never leads to a decision, it is probably not the right metric or it is not being interpreted in a useful way. If an improvement is made but the metrics do not change, you should ask whether the improvement was ineffective, whether it was applied to the wrong area, or whether the metric is not capturing the outcome you care about. This feedback loop is where analytics provides depth because it helps you understand causality and distinguish real change from noise. It also helps you detect unintended consequences, such as a reduction in alert volume that came from disabling useful detections rather than improving tuning. For beginners, this is the heart of measurement maturity. You treat metrics as hypotheses about how the system is performing, and you validate those hypotheses through trends, segmentation, and corroboration. When you run measurement this way, it becomes an engine for continuous improvement rather than a static report. In closing, choosing SOC analytics and metrics that reflect progress and effectiveness is about measuring what matters, interpreting it honestly, and using it to guide better decisions over time. Metrics provide consistent measurements. Analytics provides the explanation and context, and both must be aligned to the mission rather than to what is easiest to count. Time-based measures like MTTD and MTT can be valuable when defined clearly and segmented intelligently, but they must be balanced with quality measures that reflect whether the team is finding the right problems and reducing harm. A trustworthy measurement program depends on reliable data, clear definitions, and avoidance of vanity metrics that reward the wrong behavior. When metrics highlight bottlenecks, reveal noise and burnout risk, and support clear communication with leaders and responders, they become tools for improvement rather than tools for pressure. The ultimate goal is a feedback loop where measurement drives action and action drives verified progress. So the SOC becomes more effective, more consistent, and more resilient with every cycle of learning.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.